Hi, everyone. Um, Let me see. Let me start here. I'll try to talk a little bit about my journey in technology. And it's been a long journey. It's been about 25 years now, which means I'm currently 46. So I've had a kind of long career in technology. By way of background, I'm a partner at Golden Gate Ventures. We're a Singapore-based early-stage VC firm. We've invested in over 90 companies. We currently have 4 funds under management. But I've also made a documentary, and I'll tell a bit more about that journey, about the documentary as well. Today I'm talking about diversity in tech. And moreover, why diversity in tech is important. In the past, I would say 20 to 25 years in my career, I've met a lot of founders. I've met a lot of amazing investors. I've met a lot of amazing mentors as well. What I noticed is that in my early days, tech wasn't diverse at all. I was oftentimes the only one in the room. I was oftentimes the only one at a conference. I was oftentimes the only one fundraising. And what you notice over time is you create these battle scars. And people always tell me, like, Mike, but in the end, you had your career, you've made successful investments, you've done all that you were able to do. Like, why complain? Why does it matter? So it's 2022. And we are still discussing diversity. And I'll tell you why it matters. I have some interesting stats that I want to show you guys. So the first one, if you look at venture capital in the US, out of all the capital, and it's about $137 billion, 1.2% goes to founders of colors. So let it sink in. Out of $137 billion in venture capital, 1.2% goes to founders of color. When you talk about female founders, it's just as bad, 2%. So you're effectively telling me, and you're telling everyone on this planet, that we're not able to find amazing female or amazing founders of color. Hence, we only invest 1.2 and 2%. It gets worse. 70% of people that are investing in different asset classes, whether it's venture, private equity, real estate, effectively are saying investing in underrepresented fund managers or founders is actually increased risk. Let me tell you something. Some stats. Perception is people of color, females, people that are underrepresented in our industry are actually underperformance. Harvard University did studies, and there are, I think, at this time, hundreds of different studies that talk about diverse team actually perform just as well. And in a lot of cases, they perform better. So why is it still an issue today? Why don't we see more capital and more support for underrepresented groups? I want to take you on a little journey that is, I would kind of call my career. When I was, it's a little secret that I tell, and you guys can keep a secret, so that's fine. When I was 6 years old, I asked my sister to make me a suit, like a proper business suit. And it was green. And the reason was, my biggest dream was to become a businessman. And as a businessman, you need a suit. So she made a suit, she made clothes for the family. So she made a suit for me. It was green, it was ugly, it was way too big, and I went to school. And as you can imagine, I got beat up because I looked like a freak. So my dear friends decided to beat me up. But I still felt, I want to be this business guy, so went to university, did all that I needed to do to get my first job. In my very first board meeting, true story, in my very first board meeting, I walk into the room becomes quiet. And they all say, we didn't expect you to be here. And I was like, what do you mean? They said, well, we thought this guy was Dutch. I was like, I am Dutch. So my last name is Lints, it's a very Dutch last name, but they assumed I was a white guy. I was like, are you kidding me? This was 1999, first job. It was the first time that I noticed that once you're in the room, it doesn't mean they take you seriously. I'll take you to 2018. Again, true story. I was doing an MBA program, and for the program, I had to travel to Palo Alto. So me and my colleagues rented out an Airbnb. I arrived a little bit late, and I was opening up the door to the Airbnb. The cops showed up. And, in the Netherlands or maybe in Paris, when the cops show up, you're fairly relaxed. You can explain, okay, I rent this Airbnb, I'm supposed to be here. Not in the US. So there was a big light shining on me, and 2 cops got out of the car and said, what are you doing here? I got slightly nervous and said, well, I rented this Airbnb with my colleagues. I arrived late from Singapore, and this guy is like, you're from Singapore? Sure. Let's have a further conversation. I said, but seriously, what happened? Why are you guys here? In the end, I learned that the neighbors called the cops because they saw a black guy walking in the neighborhood. Imagine I'm on a business trip to Palo Alto where I work every now and then, and I get the cops called on me. It gets worse. I travel pretty often. As you guys know, I'm from Singapore, so I spend quite a bit of time on airplanes. I had a board meeting with one of our investors in Tokyo. I go to the, 2 stories. I go to immigration, and one of the immigration officers, I kid you not, started chanting, Wakanda, Wakanda, in a full airport. And I stood there like, should I laugh, or should I be upset, or should I be shocked? Like, what is this? And I said, dude, this is not normal, please don't. So I get to security, and I'm standing in the business class line, and the lady said, you should be in economy. And I asked her, like, why? Well, because you have an economy ticket. I said, no, I have a business class ticket. I had to explain, I kid you not, I had to explain that I was supposed to be in business class. So these are just like a few stories, and you might say, Mike, it's fine, you're still here. But you have to imagine, I'm one of the lucky ones. I'm one of the lucky ones that actually made it. I'm lucky in a system that is broken. This is not supposed to happen to anyone. So it's very important to understand that diversity actually matters. Because, again, I was very fortunate. But if you look at founders that are trying to build their own business and are looking for mentors, they look for mentors that actually look like them, or speak their language, or understand where they're coming from. If you're in the office, you want to see some folks that kind of look like you as well. It just creates a better environment. And it is proven again and again and again. Teams that include females, teams that include persons of color, just overall perform better. Diversity is not a hype cycle or a trend or something we need to talk about because George Floyd happened. Diversity is important for our future, and it's important for your business. In the next 10, 15, 20 years, our world is going to look different. It's going to be way more diverse. My kids are mixed. Your kids are going to be mixed. The world is going to look different, and we have to act now. The reason I'm here on stage is over and over and over, I want to share this message. And I want to share how important this is. Again, going back to my first slide, 1.2% in the US goes to founders and fund managers of color. And it's worse in Europe. It's 0.5% in Europe. We have a very, very long way to go. So in 2020, when the murder of George Floyd happened, I decided to write an article because I felt frustrated. And I felt that I wasn't really heard. This is a funny anecdote. I write the story, I send it to my friends. My friends said, Mike, love that you're sharing your experience. Put it on Medium and put it on social media. So I was ready to hit the send button, and my wife said, what are you doing? I said, this is a story I want to share. This is something that I'm passionate about, and I want the world to understand that I'm here where I am right now, but it's not because of a system that works, but a system that is broken. And she is like, I hear you, but you are not sending this story on social media. So it was Monday morning, June 8th. I woke up, had my coffee. I was like, you know what? I'll send the story anyway, and she won't even notice. She's not on Instagram. She doesn't really look at LinkedIn anyway, so I sent the story. Unfortunately, over 300,000 people read it and reposted it, so she did, in the end, see it. We had a bit of a fight. But the important part is that that story led to us making a documentary. The documentary is called Broken Chains, and what we effectively wanted to do is we wanted to share the story that a lot of folks in sports, in government, in education, in venture, have gone through. And what it means to be that 1% that actually made it. So my good friend Aaron, the guy in the blue suit, my good friend Jamar and myself and Kareem decided to make a documentary, which we shot during COVID. On the left side, that's my basement where we did a few of the interviews. And we found 15 amazing people to interview to talk about diversity, to talk about the history of diversity, to talk about the racial wealth gap, and why it is important to do this. You might argue and say, there are so many documentaries about racism and about the institution of the United States and how things have evolved. So we wanted to take a bit of a different twist. So we said, let's find someone in NFL. So we found an NFL player to talk about diversity in sports. Everyone assumes that once you become a LeBron James or a Serena Williams, that actually means that the problems are solved because they've become rich and they become the next investors for the next generation. But again, they are that 1%. If you look at the investors in US or even in Europe, they're part of this 1%. So we made this documentary, and we didn't expect that so many people would actually like it. So we won 7 awards with this documentary over the past year. We've done screenings in Los Angeles, Miami, New York, done screenings in London, and got a lot of feedback. And everyone is asking, Mike, how can we help? Mike, what is next? Where do you see this going? I don't have the answer. If I did, I probably wouldn't be standing here. It is such a complex problem that a documentary won't solve. But we did think about, can we find allies? Can we find people that are willing to share our message? So we had the amazing good fortune of working with BCG, Atomico, Ada Ventures, Silicon Valley Bank, and a lot of others that said, you know what? We are going to show your documentary to our team. We're going to show it to our leadership and at least have a conversation about this important topic. I just got off a call with a large private bank in New York and said, Mike, could you please come to New York and talk to our leadership about how important this is? 2 years ago, I had no idea how to make a documentary. And to be honest, 2 years ago, I didn't imagine myself talking to you guys about diversity in tech. So things are changing. Slowly, we are seeing steps being made for the better. But it takes a very long time. And it takes allyships. And it takes people having trust and belief in what we're trying to achieve here. As a little, I would say, almost say, step into the future and where we can make differences, we came up with an 8-pillar sort of transformation program that we share with a lot of companies. You can't just say, hey, Mike, come and do a keynote for us, and hopefully that kind of solves diversity. You have to look at every single aspect within business and within society. That's entrepreneurship. How do we think of funding the next generation of founders? It's cultural leadership. You need examples in sports, in entertainment, in executive management, in corporate life. Currently, in the Fortune 500, there are 3 CEOs of color, which is an abysmal number. If you look at female CEOs, every single time a female CEO runs a big company, we celebrate, and that's amazing. But we also say, look, we're doing better. Yeah, we are doing better, but it's not enough. There has to be so much more. So within investments, in media, in networks, how do you create networks and a safe space for people to talk about diversity? And of course, education and public policy. What I want to ask everyone in this room is to think about allyship and to think about how you can help within your own environment. And don't say, I have a black friend, so we're okay. There's more that you need to do. How can you help? Whether it's doing angel investments. How can you support groups? Look within your own corporation. Are you guys having a discussion internally about diversity? And if you're not, start today. I want to leave you guys with a quote that always sits in my mind almost every single day. The ultimate measure of a man or a woman is not where he or she stands in moment of comfort and convenience, but is where you stand at times of challenge and controversy. I hope for each and every one of you, I can count you as allies. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ben.